Out of the shadows comes the best of indie podcasts. I'm Jordan, and you're listening to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+.
Do you love listening to true crime stories?
Do you react out loud to details of the case?
Do you have a dark and twisted sense of humor?
Do you love cats?
Wait, what?
Then you should listen to our podcast, ODFM, One from Murder.
Each week, you'll hear our retelling of real-life murder cases, some famous, some little known.
We'll give you our in-the-moment reactions, inappropriate humor, and the occasional feline commentary.
You can listen to ODFM Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and more.
And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or on our website, odfmpodcast.com.
But remember, this podcast is not for the faint of heart.
Or those without a twisted sense of humor.
Hey, I'm the mistress of the dark art of naughty words, and I discuss true crime. Listener discretion is important. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors, and welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host who's still dog-sitting for a few more days, CJ. And oh my god, the little boy dog that I'm watching, he has the worst gas ever. It's eggy and not a pleasure to breathe in at all. He's very sweet. But I tell you, the other night, I stuffed a dryer sheet between his butt and tail just in hopes that I could sleep with the foul odors being emitted from him. It didn't work. And don't worry, I know if a dog eats a dryer sheet, it's extremely harmful to them. He's not a puppy, but an older dog, and the random things he eats normally smells bad, like duck and goose turds. So I wasn't too concerned with him eating a dryer sheet. Then, the other night, I smelled such a rank smell, but I was so deep in sleep I just couldn't wake myself up. In the morning, I found out what the source of the smell was. The boy dog had taken a dump on my gray bath mat next to my tub, so I took it downstairs and out front to hose it off, because I wanted to throw the mat in my washing machine. But the mat was dripping wet, so I put the gray mat on my silver SUV to drip dry some. I forgot about it. When I later loaded the dogs into the car to take them to the park, I somewhere lost my bath mat along the way. I retraced my path and I didn't see it anywhere. In conclusion, I ordered a new one on Amazon. And that's pretty much how my week's been going. Okay, show of hands. Who's coming to the True Crime Paranormal Festival in Denver, July 12th through the 14th? 1, 2, let's see. When's Ray's back there? 3? Well, that's great, but I hope more of you will decide to come. If you haven't been to one of these, you are missing out on a lot of fun. Come chat with me and other Darkcast shows, as well as Robin Warder from The Trail Went Cold, the guys from Gen Y Podcast, Joss from True Crime Bullshit, Kristen from Murder She Told, and so many others. There'll be paranormal shows and advocacy groups, families of victims. Last year, not only did I meet Maura Murray's sister Julie, but Leon Morales' niece Arlene Harbison, and John Palmer, who was a victim along with his wife Katie Palmer of a horrendous accident by a drunk driver. Katie didn't survive, but John has been fighting relentlessly against Texas law enforcement to get justice for his family. Also, I'll have a raffle going on Saturday of the event at my table. So be sure to stop by early and drop your name into the hat to win one of 3 bags that's chock full of Darkcast Network merch for our shows. And I just found out I've been giving out the wrong discount code for tickets. Last year in Austin, it was Beyond. Come to find out, this year they changed it up on me. The discount code is CJ at checkout to get 15% off your tickets. Please consider joining my Patreon, where for only the price of a cup of coffee a month, you'll get ad-free early release episodes, and a bonus episode at the end of every month, where we hop on our unicorns and take a ride while I tell you a story not shared here on the regular show. I'll leave a link in the show notes for both the festival and for my Patreon link. I sure hope all you fathers out there and surrogate fathers had a great Father's Day. Before I get started on the main case, I have a quick story that I just want to throw out there because it's one for the books. And yes, it's yet another involving law enforcement, this time in St. Louis, Missouri. The beginning of this year, January of 2024, 2 cops crashed their police SUV into the Riverside Gay Bar. At first, the officers claimed they were avoiding a dog in the road. Then they said they swerved to avoid a parked car. Because you know those parked cars have a way of just jumping out in front of you. After they crashed their SUV, they got out of the vehicle, and they arrested one of the owners of the bar for public disturbance. Why? Because the owner was pissed off that these officers crashed into his bar. And shouldn't he be upset, I ask? There was a bystander filming everything as the 2 police officers were telling the co-owner not to yell at them, and then they handcuffed him for causing a disturbance. The bystander asks why they're arresting the co-owner, and the cops respond with, "Don't question us, unless you want to be arrested too." The bystander repeatedly asked for one of the cops' names and badge numbers, but that cop never gave a response. One of the cops, who obviously had a superiority complex, has a long history of abuse in his position, and the St. Louis police chief apologized for his officers and the way they handled the situation. What also came out was a third version of how the cops crashed into the bar. The officer who was driving the SUV was distracted as he was fiddling with the car's radio and he veered into the bar. I tell you, warriors, when reality is more bizarre than fiction, right? You know how I enjoy throwing statistics around once in a while? Ready yourself, because that's just what I'm going to do right now. I know stats aren't always 100% accurate, but I think they give us a good idea of how bad a problem is on a certain topic. For instance, on domestic abuse. 1 in 4 women will experience severe intimate partner physical and/or sexual abuse in their lifetime. 1 in 3 have experienced some type of violence from their partner. More than 20,000 phone calls have been placed to anti-domestic violence organizations each day. 72% of all murder-suicides are done by a partner. And 94% of the victims in this situation are women. Of all of the violent crimes in the world, domestic partner abuse accounts for 15%. Those are just staggering numbers, solidifying what I've believed for a long time. You probably should just get a cat or dog instead. Just kidding. Kinda. The main case this episode is about another Dick. 49-year-old Richard Wendell Sotka Jr. Dick to us. He's been a long-time abuser of the women in his life. Dick lives in Wisconsin, and I couldn't tell you if he's a certified cheesehead or not. What I can tell you is that Dick was in a romantic relationship with a woman in 2002 when he broke the woman's leg, fractured her skull, and knocked out several of her teeth. He was only sentenced to 5 years of prison at that time. His defense was, "I just lost it." In July of 2021, Oconto County, Dick was engaged to a different woman. One evening, they started to argue, and he pushed his fiancée to the ground. And he told her, "I could easily snap your neck." After this attack, the fiancée became an ex-fiancée, and she quickly filed a restraining order against Dick, which he violated by stalking his ex in January of 2022. The ex-fiancée had told a friend that she was legitimately in fear that Dick would kill her. Dick approached this same friend of the fiancé's and asked them to buy him an AK-47, which the friend smartly declined to do. Of course, Dick denied ever putting a hand on his fiancée or ever threatening her to the police. He was still found guilty in court of stalking charges in Oconto County, and he was forced to wear a GPS monitoring bracelet and to pay a fine of over $10,000. However, none of this deterred Dick's Dick. His Dick had a mind of its own and found another girlfriend in 58-year-old Rhonda Cegelski of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Saturday, January 28, 2023. Out on bond from Oconto County Jail, Dick was on his way to see Rhonda. Rhonda, a Scorpio born on November 18, 1964, was a mother of 4 kids, and she loved them to pieces. She would often tell them she loved them more than a whale loves its tail. She was also mom to a fur baby Shar-Pei rescue dog named Venus and to 2 fur baby kitties, Baby and Cooper. Rhonda had lived in Green Bay for about 10 years, and she worked as a hairdresser at Say Bella Salon. She loved doing hair, and her clientele loved her. Rhonda often gave credit to others for her beautiful little life. She had been divorced, but she was generally a very happy person. Rhonda had a co-worker at the salon named Paula O'Connor. Paula was 53 years old and also had children, and she was even a grandmother. The 2 women became fast friends, which in time might have developed into something a little stronger, such as a romantic relationship. On January 28, 2023, Paula had stayed overnight at Rhonda's duplex with her. The 2 women had been consuming quite a bit of alcoholic drinks. Dick showed up at Rhonda's place, and all 3 adults were getting drunk together. And then sometime during the night, an argument over something occurred between Paula and Dick. The conflict became so disruptive, Rhonda had to order Dick out of her house. This is when Dick said Rhonda and Paula started to have sex in front of him, and that the 2 women were laughing at him to further his humiliation. To my knowledge, Dick's allegation has never been confirmed. It's also not been denied by anyone either, as far as I can tell. But some of the evidence does kind of point to it having happened. Dick had followed Rhonda into the kitchen, and he grabbed a butcher knife in which he proceeded to stab Rhonda. There were fatal wounds in her head and throat. He then turned his knife on Paula and stabbed her, leaving the butcher knife in her neck before going upstairs to shower, and then he fled the scene. Paula was naked from below her waist. She was laying face down when she was found. With Paula being naked from her waist down, that's what sorta makes me believe Paula and Rhonda were fooling around. But on the same token, Dick could have easily removed Paula's pants to plant the story about the 2 women having sex with each other in front of him. A bit later in the morning, one of Rhonda's adult children dropped by. She actually lived in the duplex next door to Rhonda's. The daughter would find Paula's body laying on the floor with a knife still inserted in her neck. The daughter left the home and she called 911 and waited outside for emergency responders. When police arrived, they first found Paula's body, and then they discovered Rhonda's body in the kitchen with the fatal stab wounds. Meanwhile, police in Oconto County, they were on high alert when they were checking Dick's GPS bracelet. It seemed to be just sitting on a ramp on a highway in Green Bay. In his haste to get away, Dick had cut the bracelet off and threw it out a window of the truck he had borrowed from his boss. He then drove himself to Arkansas. Police in Oconto County got in touch with Dick's employer. He in turn told them about Dick borrowing his truck. The police also learned that the employer's GMC truck had an OnStar tracking device attached to it. Police monitored the truck and Dick's moves every step of the way. Then the police got in touch with Arkansas State Police and they had Dick pulled over. Dick was quickly arrested. He had his passport and $4,000 on him. Dick was being held in an Arkansas jail until Wisconsin police could get there to where he was. And once they did, they interviewed him and extradited him back to Wisconsin. During his interview, Dick admitted to killing Rhonda and Paula, but he said the charges of assault and stalking his ex-fiancée, they were bogus. What a dumb shit this guy is. He admits to a double murder, but he denies the assault and stalking charges? Okay. Dick was charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, criminal damage to property for his GPS bracelet, and 2 counts of bail jumping. At his trial in March of 2024, his big defense that he kept repeating was, "I just lost it. I snapped." Pretty much the same thing he had told police when he was arrested for abusing his 2002 girlfriend after he broke her leg, cracked her skull, and knocked out her teeth. Dick continued to tell the court everyone wanted him to show remorse, but he felt nothing. He said he killed the women in self-defense. Whoa, self-defense now? Bullshit. He'd been dragging Rhonda's name through the mud since he'd been caught, such as a classic domestic abuser would. And the jury saw right through his crap. The jury convicted Dick the Prick for all the charges against him. A judge sentenced him to 2 back-to-back life terms without the chance of parole. Hopefully, Dick can take some anger management classes in prison and get some mental help for his abusive tendencies towards women. Not that he'll ever be released and be in public to be a menace to women anymore, but he still should be mandated to take the classes. Rest in power, Rhonda and Paula. Our true crime quickie comes to us from Montgomery, Alabama in 2012. 21-year-old Zachary Steyerwalt was originally from Cary, North Carolina. As a teenager, he faithfully attended church with his family. He was an Eagle Scout and an honor student. I'm not sure if he left home because his family didn't approve of him being gay, or if it was just time for him to leave and explore his life as an adult. He'd been a student of photography at Appalachian State University. After leaving his home in North Carolina, Zachary ended up in New York City the summer of 2012. This is where he interned for a photo studio called Go Studios. Go Studios manager Natalie said she had interviewed Zachary for the position. She also allowed him to stay with her for 2 weeks until he found other living arrangements. Natalie was extremely impressed with Zachary. She said he was very sweet and definitely a people person. She continued that she had never seen him get angry or be rude to anyone. He was also nearly certified to be a Pilates teacher, and he was very excited about that. While Zachary was interning, he created a blog on Tumblr called Sassy Gay Hippie. This is where he chronicled his life in New York, including his time at gay clubs and visiting Stonewall. After his internship ended the end of August 2012, Zachary decided to head west, ending up in Alabama. He attended a church and he met a woman who knew a 43-year-old man that lived alone. She figured that man would most likely let Zachary stay with him. The 43-year-old man, Daniel Turman, he was a father of 2, but now they were adult children who were often living on their own. When asked, Daniel agreed to let Zachary live with them. On November 24th of 2012, about a week and a half since Zachary had started to live with Daniel, Zachary believed God was speaking to him. Sorry, my eyes just rolled. If you've been listening for a while, you know how I feel about people who say God spoke to them. It just doesn't happen. Because we all know God doesn't have time for that one-on-one private conversation shit. Someday I'm just waiting for someone to say, God FaceTime me to chat. Well, what God apparently told Zachary was that he must kill Daniel. Yep, the man who was kind enough to take Zachary in when he had nowhere else to live. Early that morning, before the sun was up, Zachary awoke. He was praying and listening to music. And that's when God spoke to him, telling him to kill Daniel. Zachary crept into Daniel's room while the older man continued sleeping. Then Zachary removed a handgun from Daniel's nightstand. Zachary kneeled next to Daniel's bed, and he shot Daniel in the head. Zachary stood up, left the room, and then he shortly returned. Upon his return to Daniel's room, he noticed that Daniel was wiggling about on his bed. So Zachary picked up the gun again and he unloaded a few more bullets into Daniel until Daniel stopped moving. Around 6 a.m., Zachary dialed 911 to report the shooting. Police arrived and began investigating the crime scene. When the police came to talk to Zachary, he was very calm and relaxed during his interrogation with the police. He sincerely told them what God had told him to do. Police arrested Zachary, charging him with capital murder. Zachary was appointed a defense attorney who claimed that Zachary was not competent enough to stand trial. At his pre-trial, Zachary claimed not guilty by reason of insanity. The prosecution was skeptical, though, feeling this was a typical defense tactic. The prosecutors continued to believe this until Zachary was examined by a forensic psychologist. This psychologist evaluated Zachary and claimed Zachary had some serious mental disorders and he was not fit for trial. He was diagnosed with severe bipolar disorder and psychotic episodes. And I have to say, I find this highly unusual, that this kid was also exemplary in everything he did up until this point of his life. And then all of a sudden these severe mental disorders came about? I guess it's possible. It just seems kind of unlikely. That's just Dr. CJ's 2 cents, because it kind of blows my mind that he wouldn't have shown symptoms of these mental disorders earlier on in his life. A judge in Zachary's trial, which actually never really took place, sentenced him to a mental health facility for an undetermined amount of time, with hopes that Zachary could one day return to be a productive member of society. His defense attorney at the time said that Zachary was already showing improvement while he was in jail awaiting his sentence, and that was because of the medication he was on for his condition. Now, this case happened about 12 years ago. I've done a little searching for Zachary Henderson Steyerwalt, and I found out he'll be 33 years old in just a few days, making him a Gemini. He's no longer in an Alabama mental facility, but rather back to living his life in Cary, North Carolina. I'm not sure how long he stayed in the facility, or if he was even made to stand trial for Daniel's murder after being declared mentally competent. And for all I know, he might actually still be in a mental facility, but in his hometown close to his family. Rest in power, Daniel. I love you, Rainbow Warriors. You matter. And remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.